Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find the show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And, of course, you can follow the show through RSS, through email updates. You can always subscribe on YouTube. You can also listen to the show on iTunes and TuneIn and some more podcatchers that are on the way. I know I keep saying that. And, of course, you can also listen to the rebroadcast, which happens later on in the week on Friday nights on a whole host of other stations. I believe we're on Awake. We're on People's Internet Radio, a whole bunch of other things. And also, if you follow Ed Opperman's stuff, he always posts all of my shows as well on his stuff. So lots of ways to listen to the show. And if you want to support my work, then I encourage you to first I encourage you to support American Freedom Radio, and you can do that by going to the clicking the donate button on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, and you can become a subscriber and donate to AFR. But if you want to support my work and all the stuff I do, not just this show, but the CIA in Hollywood and all the other projects that I do, then you can always go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond and you can become a subscriber. And quickly, we have a jam-packed show today, and we're going to get to that. But before we get there, I have some Patreon updates. So first things first, I recently did a special episode with a good friend of the show, Ed Opperman, talking about the Las Vegas shooting and Stephen Paddock, and that is, of course, today's topic as well. But if you the show that I did with Ed is available to all subscribers, so there's no if you're at $1 or above, you can hear the conversation that Ed and I did. It's a bit of an exclusive interview. Ed isn't doing any interviews or shows on the Vegas shooting, so I think I'm probably the only person that Ed talked to. So definitely sign up and listen to that, because we're going to be referencing our conversation on today's show. But I wanted to say that I'm trying to expand the Patreon stuff a little bit more. I'm trying to get some more people interested in Patreon and sort of build up the show and of course make it available for more and more people. Want more people to obviously to help support me, but also to listen to all this stuff. So I'm going to be implementing some changes to Patreon, and the biggest one being that I am now going to allow everybody that subscribes or signs up on Patreon to have access to the special monthly bonus podcast. So normally you had to pledge $5 or more to get access to the bonus podcast, but right now everybody will soon, probably by the end of the week, all the changes will have taken effect. But everybody will be able to listen to the bonus podcast. So it's a great deal for $1 a month. You get access to the bonus podcast that I do, as well as any kind of special content and stuff like that. If I'm on another person's bonus show or something like that, Chuck and I do that sometimes. I'll do that with Tom Secker, other people. So that'll be there. And I am planning on putting up more sort of special podcasts, much like the one that I did with Ed. So I'm testing it out right now. I think it'll probably remain like that, although we'll see. I mean, and I do hope that people that have signed up at the $5 or $3 level will continue to do that, even though they will be able to get the podcast for as little as $1 a month. And it's fine if you want to lower your pledge, that's okay. I understand everybody is tight for money right now, and is struggling out there. So don't worry if you want to lower your pledge to $1 a month. But I think it's a good idea, and I'm going to be shifting around some of the other rewards for $3 and $5. We're going to offer up a reward for $10 as well. And we're trying to expand all that. So if you have any comments or suggestions to me, definitely email me, or you could message me on Patreon. You could message me on Twitter, however you want to get a hold of me. But let me know, give me some feedback on all of this. But speaking of Patreon, I do want to thank, we got a whole bunch of new subscribers to Patreon, and I think in part because of this interview I did with Ed. And so I just wanted to thank Gabriel, Lenny, Daniel, Gregory, Kai, Jonathan, Mateus, and Jimmy. Thank you all so much for donating and signing up. I think they're all at the $1 a month level, which is a fantastic way to help support me. So thank you to everybody that has signed up in the past couple of days. There's been a great response to Patreon. So again, that's why we're trying to kind of expand that out a bit. But anyway, a lot to discuss on today's show. I am going to be doing this solo, so bear with me. You're gonna be with me for 2 hours today. And as I said before, I did a show with Ed I think this was about a week ago. Now, I mean, it's funny. It feels like it was even longer, but I think it was only a week ago that Ed and I recorded about an hour-long conversation talking about the shooting in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. We talked about Stephen Paddock. We talked about a lot of stuff. And I wanted to get Ed on, of course, because Ed lives in Henderson, Nevada, which is just outside of Las Vegas, works in Vegas. He knows the whole area. Vegas is it's a pretty small town or city. It's fairly spread out, but it's tiny. There's not a lot of people there. Ed knows everybody. So I thought Ed would be a great person to have on to discuss this. And we discussed all sorts of different things related to the shooting that I'm going to be talking about later on today in the episode. But I did want to cover this story in a little bit more detail. Again, when Ed and I were talking, it had just happened. We really didn't know too much information. I definitely floated some ideas in our conversation that I think I no longer really think have much credence or much sort of concrete backing to them. But of course, that's how these things work. A few days after a horrific event, such as the Las Vegas shooting at the Route 91 Country Music Festival. So. And as I said, I did kind of want to explore this a bit more because, I said this with Ed when we were talking. I had some sort of reluctance to look into this, and I haven't really, this sounds, I don't know, a bit cold or something, but these sort of mass shootings, they've become almost ubiquitous with American society, American life here. And for the most part, I've sort of ignored them, or I haven't paid too much attention to them. As I said, they've become so normal. It's almost, well, there we go, yet another mass shooting. This one, though, I did. It was so spectacular in terms of the level of violence. In terms of the attention that it received, obviously, all over the world, but especially here nationally. So I did think that it was worth kind of exploring. And I did spend, or I have been spending, a pretty fair amount of time looking into the event, looking into some of the facts that we know, exploring some of the alternative conspiracy theories that have been put out there by a lot of people, most of which I think are BS, and we'll get to that later. But I was fascinated by the way the media both the mainstream and the conspiracy media sort of interpreted this event. So I thought it would be worth exploring. Now, with the caveat that I don't think I'm going to be talking about this beyond this episode. This would, this will be the second episode that I've done on the Vegas shooting, if we count this special podcast I did with Ed. And I think that's about it. And I think hopefully by the end of these 2 hours, you will see why I don't really want to pursue this anymore. And I was even a little hesitant this morning about doing the show, and I kind of felt like maybe this wasn't worth it, or it wasn't, I wasn't as committed to wanting to do this. But I think it's worth. I still think there's a lot to be said, and then to kind of just leave it. And there's a lot both in terms of the event itself, how something like this could transpire, where seemingly one man could fire upon a huge crowded festival in a big city, or, not big, but in a major city like Las Vegas, and kill 58 people, I believe is the number that has been the most repeated, although I'm sure that number will go up. And injured 500 people. I mean, it's pretty spectacular, and it's sort of something that you kind of can't avoid, especially when you're doing a weekly radio show. So anyway, I do want to talk about it, and I do have here we go, motorcycle right outside my window. I'm sorry if you heard that. And I do have a lot to say on this that I kind of wanted to just get out there and then just sort of leave it, and people can kind of pick it apart or whatnot. But let's get into that. We'll stop rambling on about that. Now before we dive into this, just one little thing. I just want to remind people that just because I don't mention a certain fact or a certain detail, it doesn't mean that I've never heard of it before, and it doesn't mean that I'm doing it deliberately because I am an agent of George Soros, or I'm trying to cover up something, or I'm some sort of a disinfo agent for Mossad or the CIA. Just because I don't mention something, it doesn't, I don't need 1,000 comments and emails about how I'm not doing anything to avoid stuff. I am just, I'm talking about the stuff that I think is most important. And if I miss stuff, fucking get over it, deal with it, sue me if you don't like it. It's not necessarily intentional. I know that's the thought out there, but it is a 2-hour show. There's a lot to get in there, but you can't fit everything in. So don't jump down my throat if I don't mention something that you think is really, really important. But let's get into this, because there's quite a lot to unpack. I guess first and foremost, let's just sort of go over the general timeline for the attack itself and where Stephen Paddock was. And this is something that is becoming a bit of a theme when it comes to the Vegas shooting, is that the timeline, like many of the facts and details of this case, are still changing. Things that we thought were completely solid and concrete are also changing. And just before we started recording today, I saw an article in the LA Times that once again has talking about the sort of revised timeline of the night in question. And again, there's going to be a ton of show notes for this episode, so try and go through them. It's going to be a lot. As I'm not going to be necessarily quoting every single direct detail from the article, so just go through the show notes. But here we go. So this is the timeline. This is the most recent timeline that I have seen. And this is in an LA Times article. So we've got at 9:59, hotel security guard, and this is Jesus Campos, is shot by Paddock on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. Now this is huge because, of course, this is a full 6 minutes before Stephen Paddock starts firing down on the concert goers. And the original timeline had this happening much later. I believe this had this happening I think like 10 to 12 minutes after he had started firing. But now the police and Sheriff Lombardo, who's in charge of this investigation, has now said that actually at 9:59 Jose Campos was shot by Stephen Paddock. Then 6 minutes later at 10:05 the first shots are fired on the music festival. Then by 10:12, the first two officers arrive on the 31st floor and announce that the gunfire is coming from directly above them. Then, around 10:15, the last shots are fired by Paddock. By 10:17, the first two officers arrive on the 32nd floor. 10:18, the security officer, I assume this is Jose Campos, it's Jesus Campos, I believe, actually. I'm sorry if I think, yes, it's Jesus Campos. Sorry about that. Jesus Campos tells police he was shot and gives the location of the gunman's room. From 10:26 to 10:30, 8 additional officers arrive on the 32nd floor and begin to move down the hallway, clearing every room and looking for any injured people. They are no longer hearing gunfire. Then 10:55. 8 officers arrive in the stairwell at the opposite end of the hallway nearest to Paddock's room. 11:20, officers enter the room, and this is they fired some sort of explosive round to blow open the door. So 11:20, the officers enter the room. They see Paddock on the ground and a second door that cannot be accessed from their position. 11:27, a second breach is set off, allowing officers to enter the second room. Officers quickly realize there is no one else in the rooms and announce over the radio that the suspect is down. Now, this is the timeline. This is the newest timeline. and I'm sure that this will be subject to change as well, because as it's become very apparent in this case, the details are hazy at best. And I think this is more illustrative of a horrible police response to all of this. And I think this is a theme that I want to kind of hit on throughout this episode, is that I believe more and more now that the cover-up, if there is one, and there does seem to be something of a cover-up, is really about police incompetence, and is about how unprofessional, how bad and shitty a job the Las Vegas Metro Police Department did when it came to this shooting. And this is something that Ed and I talked about at length in our conversation about a week ago. Ed was, relaying numerous stories of how trigger happy the Las Vegas Police Department is, how under trained they are, how just sort of juiced up, and they overreact to everything, how basically unprofessional they are as a police force, which is there's a variety of reasons for that. Ed sort of put out one of the big ones, is that there really isn't like if you go to a big city like New York or Boston or Los Angeles or Chicago, I'm sure if you go down south, places like Dallas or Houston, you're talking about if you're a cop there, your father was a cop, your uncle was a cop, your grandfather was a cop. There's a history. There's a bit of a professionalism, and I'm not trying to defend the police here in like New York or LA or places like that, but there is a certain amount of professionalism and decorum. There is a certain amount of historical knowledge of what it means to be a police officer and how to conduct yourself as a police officer. In Las Vegas, that's not the case. You're talking about a lot of people that, they're not from Vegas. They're transplants. They move to Las Vegas. They're young. They join the police force. They don't have a background in law enforcement. And they're given a gun, and a badge and quite a level of freedom to do whatever they want. And that's why you have tons and tons of problems with the Las Vegas police in terms of shooting innocent people, in terms of overreacting to situations and gunning people down. And as Ed pointed out, there are lots and lots of cases of the Las Vegas police overreacting, losing their shit, completely freaking out, killing people or injuring people, and then covering it up. There's a famous case that happened not that long ago in a Costco where I believe the suspect might have been armed in the Costco, or there was some sort of a confrontation, and the cops just sort of went all, rogue and started shooting. They injured a bunch of people. It's a huge overreaction. It would have been, a huge fiasco. And this was caught on tape. And police confiscated all the tapes. They destroyed them. So keep that in mind while we move forward, especially when key details of the timeline are being revised up until now. I mean, again, how are we being told that Jesus Campos was, again, and the story that we were told initially with this timeline was that, Jesus Campos was responding to like a door that was ajar that had set off an alarm, and that people were complaining about the noise and whatnot of Stephen Paddock in his room on the 32nd floor. So he went to go investigate it. And the story that we've been told is that while he was walking there, Paddock, while he's mowing down all of these people at the concert, he noticed on his multiple cameras that he had set up in the hallway that he then saw Campos walking towards him. And then, according to Sheriff Lombardo and others, he fired something like 200 rounds through the door at Campos, and somehow all Campos suffered was one shot in the leg. Now that story, I remember when watching one of the press conferences where Sheriff Lombardo talked about it, and and he said, it's unbelievable that he wasn't injured or killed, and it is unbelievable in the most literal sense. I don't believe that really happened. And now that we're seeing this sort of revision of details, I believe it less and less. Now, I don't know exactly what happened to Campos, but again, these are major details. How has the media not interviewed this guy? And this raises serious questions about the hotel security. And again, Vegas is there's only one game in town in Vegas, and that's casinos and the entertainment industry. That's what fuels Vegas, the Vegas economy. So, and again, these casinos and especially these hotels and stuff, they allow, that you can get away with a lot there, and they don't want to, they want to protect themselves. And again, Sheriff Lombardo, as Ed said, he's a company man. He was when he ran for sheriff, he was the casino's pick for sheriff. Meaning that, if something happened at a casino, Lombardo is a nice guy, but he will kind of, smooth things over, cover things up, stuff like that. So, now there's some serious questions about what actually went on. And not that there's like something nefarious, that, I don't know, Campos is like part of this false flag operation or whatnot, but perhaps this is more a case of police negligence and casino negligence. So we're gonna get to a bit more of that later on, but I just wanted to we're just starting with that. But let's get a little bit into Stephen Paddock himself, because he is obviously key to understanding this whole story, and all of most of the sort of alternative conspiracy theories that have come out, and we're going to address them. Most of them deal with Stephen Paddock and what's going on. But Stephen Paddock is an odd person. He appears to not fit the profile for any kind of mass shooter, for any kind of terrorist, for any sort of lone gunman. He doesn't fit that. He was fairly wealthy. He appears to have almost no political beliefs or affiliations. He seems to have no social media presence. People never heard him, slip up and say he hated the government or he hated Republicans or he hated Democrats or he hated this person or that. He seems to be a person that's solely obsessed with video poker and gambling large sums of money. So let's explore a little bit of Stephen Paddock, what we know about him. So we know he was born in Iowa, but spent most of his time growing up in California. He had two brothers. They lived in Sun Valley, California for most of their childhood. His father was Patrick Benjamin Paddock, who was on the run for most of Stephen's life, and they appear to have not really known each other or had much contact. We'll get to the father a little bit later. Stephen Paddock worked for the IRS at one point. He worked in the post office. He was he worked for the Defense Contract Audit Agency. Although I've seen that is not been denied, but it's not mentioned as much in the news media. Then he got into real estate with his one of his brothers, I believe it's Eric, and this made him fairly wealthy. And he started in in Los Angeles, and small apartment buildings, nothing big. He fairly uneventful, but he starts flipping these and whatnot, and he makes quite a bit of money. He's a millionaire. And through this, his brothers are fairly well off, or at least Eric Paddock seems to be well off. And he said that Stephen helped him buy his house that he was living in. When you see him in these videos, he owned multiple homes all over. It seems as if at the moment of this, he had the home in Mesquite. He had I think he had a place in Reno. It was like an apartment or something. And I think there was one other place too. I can't remember right off the top of my head. He also owned two planes at one point. And he was a licensed pilot, and he liked to travel a lot, mostly to casinos. And it seems that, that was again his passion. He was an avid gambler. This is after he retires. It seems like his entire life revolves around sitting in front of a video poker machine and spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's reported at one point, in the weeks leading up, he's meant to have gambled somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a day, and this is mostly coming from CTRs, which are currency transaction reports that casinos have to make, when there's large sums of money changing hands. Again, he's described as living this sort of itinerant life. He had 27 residences this is throughout his history, which is quite a lot. Think about, you're listening to this right now. I mean, think about how many places you've lived in. 27 is quite a lot. But he was always going to Las Vegas, and Reno as well to some degree. And again, this gambling was really pretty extreme. Like I said, $100,000 on video poker. This is a sum that's been quoted many times. I read in an article, again, these will all be in the show notes, that at one point there was one period where he spent 4 months in a hotel. Okay, he lived in a Vegas hotel for 4 months, gambling up to 14 hours a day on video poker. He's also it's been said by other people that he loved to be kind of pampered at these things. He liked the comps. He liked getting his room comp. He liked getting free food. He apparently really liked, getting things for free or for cheap. He also, he lived in this retirement community in Mesquite, which is like an hour and a half or so outside of Las Vegas. And he used to go to the local community center there where they would have like free lunches and stuff for seniors and things like that. And he would go in there and get food. I mean, so it's a bit odd. Like this guy couldn't go to a diner or, he probably could have hired a cook to cook for him. But anyway, very much a gambler, and we're going to get into how that might have played a bit of a role in all of this. And along with this, he also seems to have had a small arsenal of guns. He, in the 3 homes that he owned, plus the Mandalay Bay, 47 guns in total. He also had things like he had a lot of ampho, which is a fertilizer, which has been used in bombs before. He also had huge amounts of tannerite. And if people don't know what tannerite is, it's actually really terrifying chemical. It's like an explosive target, and you can blow up a house if you get enough tannerite. And this is, we'll probably talk about some of this, gun control stuff. There should really be like tannerite control. Just look up videos on YouTube of tannerite. You can, you get enough tannerite, you can blow up anything. And it's basically ignited when you shoot it with a gun. And he had a lot of his tannerite as well. But yeah, and he apparently he was acquiring a ton of guns. And I know that there was this sort of, if you listen to his brother, no, he didn't have any guns, maybe 1 or 2 handguns and maybe a long gun, a rifle, but that's it. Well, apparently this is like all BS. And I think that a lot of his brother's comments really stem from the fact that his brother didn't know who Stephen Paddock was. Eric Paddock had no idea who Stephen Paddock really was, had no real connection to him. It seems like if you kind of actually read through these articles and you start getting into the details of it, Eric Paddock had not a lot of contact with him, especially direct contact. They talked on the phone, they would see each other here and there, but I don't think that his brother really had any concept of who this guy was, because he makes him out to be this, he didn't have anything, he wasn't into guns. But apparently he was quite into guns, obviously by the fact that he was, for instance, from October 2016 to September 28th, 2017, Paddock bought 33 guns. Okay, so that's like 2 guns a month. All right. And that's something we'll get to, but he did have a lot of guns. There are people around him, who have spoken to the press, saying that yes, he talked about guns, he talked about the Second Amendment, his girlfriend, who we'll get to, Marilou Danley, her sister's husband had met Stephen Paddock on several occasions. I believe when they would all be in the Philippines together, and he'd also traveled to Nevada and had seen him, and he said that Stephen Paddock did nothing but talk about guns, and that he had a gun room that he wanted to show him, and that Stephen Paddock was very well versed in gun laws, in the culture of guns in America. So, he's a gun guy. We'll just get that out of the way. No judgment calls here at all, but just to say that. Now Paddock has been described as this, again, according to his brother, wonderful guy, just the sweetest man in the world, wouldn't hurt a fly. There's another woman who worked for his real estate company. She's come forward now to say, this isn't the Paddock I know, and I want to help them get to the bottom of this, because he was just this wonderful, caring, generous person who would, throw his money around and stuff. Maybe at one point he was like this, but that again doesn't ring true. Everything that I've read on Paddock right now, it sounds like the exact opposite. Okay. Again, there's the Starbucks employee that people might have read about at I believe this was in Reno, in a casino in Reno or near to it was a casino in Mesquite that he went to, a local casino. They had a Starbucks in there, and him and his girlfriend Marilou Danley would go into the Starbucks. And according to the Starbucks employee, all Paddock ever did was browbeat his girlfriend, and would just say nasty things to her. He would say things like, quote, "You don't need my casino card. I'm paying for your drink. just like I'm paying for you. And the Starbucks employees said they hated every time Paddock came in because it was uncomfortable. He was nasty and rude. It was described in court papers from back when he tried to sue the Cosmopolitan Resort and Casino, or hotel and casino, in Las Vegas. They described him as slovenly, unkempt, that he was careless, that he was, he wasn't really, he wasn't put together. I'm not to be totally superficial, but you look at any picture of Paddock and he looks like a weirdo. He doesn't look like this, wonderful, caring, he just looks like almost like a zombie, like all the pictures of him he's like he always looks tired because too, apparently he never slept. He would stay up all night when he wasn't physically in a casino gambling. He was at home playing video poker on his computer all night. Again, according to affidavits and court papers and stuff that came out of this lawsuit from a few years back, Paddock himself stated that he, barely slept, that he was always, he was a gambler. This was his professional career. They said they asked him in these court proceedings if when you stayed at these resorts and did you go to the pool? And he said, no, I don't like to be out in the sun. So, kind of a weird guy. And again, according to lots of people that knew him, okay, not there's always, everybody is, he was this wonderful person, this glowing individual. Everybody wants to say that. And in part, maybe that is people's, perceptions of this. I mean, again, if it's a loved one, you might say that. But I think a lot of people are kind of embarrassed at what Paddock did. I think many people are embarrassed by the fact that they didn't see some of these things, or that they perceived his standoffish kind of weird behavior and didn't say anything. There's always that, oh God, if only I had done something. But again, everybody that really seems to have interacted with him, a lot of people in the casinos and things like that, kept to himself. He was nasty to people. He supposedly used to go into these like high roller rooms and stuff where, people are betting a lot and things like that, or they're going to hang out, these like high roller suites. He would bring in his own drinks because he didn't want to have to tip a waitress, God forbid. And I will say too that, the husband of his girlfriend's sister did describe Paddock, and he's an Australian guy. He did describe Paddock as quote, highly intelligent, strategic, and guarded. That he was a planning and thinking type of guy. So I think that does kind of fit in. But again, married, divorced twice, no children, doesn't seem to have a lot of friends. He would wander around the casino in sweatpants and flip-flops. Didn't really care much about his, physical appearance, which is very, that's a very common with addicts in general, but also with people with gambling addictions. They don't care about those sorts of things. And he just kind of comes across as a very cold, uncaring person. Now, Paddock was recently prescribed diazepam or Valium, which might is a for anxiety and stuff like that. And it has been reported by various people, ABC being a big one that seems to be running with this quite a bit, that, in the months leading up, Paddock was, quote, descending into madness. And we'll get into those sorts of details a little bit later because it's very odd that they're being, tossed out there. But anyway, quickly, Paddock's girlfriend, Marilou Danley, she met Paddock in 2013 while she was still married, interesting, and then divorced in 2015. She has a daughter, who lives out in California. I know someone is going to point this out if I don't get into it, but, her daughter, Sheila Danley Linton, is married to, Micah Linton, who's an artist, and, Micah Linton's father is, William Linton, who's the CEO of Promega, which is like a biotech firm. So, don't hound me about that angle. I've looked into it. I don't know if there's really much to that other than, maybe the pattern of, the Danley family marrying into money. Marilou Danley, is an Australian citizen of Filipino descent. She's lived in Nevada since 2003. September 15th of 2017, she arrives in the Philippines from Tokyo. This was on a ticket that Paddock bought for Marilou Danley. So she arrives in the Philippines. Then on September 22nd, she leaves the Philippines for Hong Kong. Then on September 25th, she leaves Hong Kong back to the Philippines. Then on October 3rd, she leaves the Philippines for Los Angeles to speak with the FBI about what happened. Now, and as far as I know, that hasn't quite been explained either, why she was going to Hong Kong and back. My initial sort of gut reaction is shopping, and this is something I want to kind of point out there. I know I'm throwing a lot of details out there, and I'm sure there are going to be some people that are screaming at the computer or whatever while they're listening to this, but we need to think logically with this case, okay? And that's sort of, that will probably be in the title for this episode, something about thinking logically. Because this is, ostensibly this is a crime, okay? I mean, not ostensibly, it is a crime, even though people want to make it into something else. This is a crime. This is about a man who gunned down 58 people and injured 500. We need to try and use logic when exploring this and not immediately jump to every possible conspiracy theory. So, Marilou Danley traveling back and, from Philippines to Hong Kong and then from Hong Kong back to the Philippines. I know that, this is, she was meeting with her, whatever, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, handler or something. I've seen, it's all these sort of crazy things. But, Danley met Paddock while she was a high-stakes hostess. She loved this sort of gambling culture, this sort of gambling lifestyle, where you meet guys that have tons of money to spend. I mean, Paddock bought her a plane ticket and then wired her $100,000. Like that, that's nothing. Paddock he's described in some of these, court papers I think when he bought his house in Mesquite, and they were first of all, he paid cash, okay, from gambling. On top of that, I mean, he said he gambled like $1 million, or he made $1 million gambling. This guy was throwing money around. He didn't really care. I mean, if you're going to sit in front of a video poker machine and, spend $100,000, money doesn't really matter to you. And Marilou Danley seems to be the type of person that's attracted to that lifestyle. All they did, their houses from neighbors and stuff, houses didn't really have much in them, not much furnishing. They were never home. They would constantly be traveling, going to Vegas or to Reno. They would travel overseas to gamble. This was their life. Again, when I talked to Ed, I brought this up because I was sort of curious, and I was like, there's got to be something with the girlfriend. What does the girlfriend know? And again, according to her, the $100,000, she doesn't know why. He said it was so that she could buy a house in the Philippines. She thought, oh my God, he's going to break up with me. She had no idea about the shooting, that they were madly in love. There was nothing suspicious to her. No mention of his growing arsenal of weapons. I don't think she's really spoken on the fact that he was buying lots of guns and that, according to other people, he was, openly talked about guns and gun rights and stuff. Nothing with her. Her sisters have all backed up her claims that Paddock sent her away because they didn't want her to interfere, all that kind of stuff. And I thought initially, this is suspicious. You're living with someone like this, you have to know. And I brought this up to Ed, and Ed said, I know a lot of people like that. I know a lot of women like this. I know a lot of men like this. It's not all that odd in Las Vegas for people to be like this, And this is a huge thing, too, is that a lot of people are jumping into looking at this case, and they don't have any concept of gambling and what, especially high stakes gambling. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But they also don't, the lifestyle. It's a lot of people like this in Vegas where they don't really have much at home, where they basically live out of hotels that are all comp because they're spending tons and tons of money down in the casino all day and night. This is not all that uncommon. There are lots of people like this that exist, especially in places like Las Vegas. So don't jump to every conclusion. So again, this, her traveling back and forth. Hong Kong's a huge shopping center and a gambling center, so perhaps this is where that's what she was doing. Not everything has to have a nefarious angle to it. And I think, again, people need to look into some of this stuff logically. Marilou Danley seems like the type of person that could have been totally unaware. She didn't really care. She was a kept woman. As long as Paddock was paying for these trips and whatnot, she didn't really care. She didn't want to know. Maybe she saw something. Because now, of course, she's alluded or at least news outlets have alluded that she said there was something wrong. He was losing his mind, or there was some sort of mental strain. Obviously there was. But, it's also possible that she was really just one of these people that was like, whatever, he's paying for everything. I don't care. I'm not going to ask questions. I'm living a comfortable life. We get to travel. He buys me stuff. I know that sounds very shallow, but, it's Las Vegas. There's a lot of shallow people out there. So that's not all that odd. And I think we need to, at least, humor ourselves by looking into, some of these angles with all of this. Because when we ignore them, we ignore other possibilities. Again, everybody wants to be an armchair detective, an armchair investigator with this. Well, if you were a real detective, and stuff, a good detective wouldn't just jump to, this is it. It's false flag with George Soros and Antifa and that's it. You have to entertain all ideas. Could Marilou Danley have been totally unaware? It's possible. Could Marilou Danley have just been shopping in Hong Kong? It's possible. We don't know anything else. So, we have to look into that. Now, there's a few interesting points that I kind of wanted here's one thing too, actually, before we get to that. According to Danley, she did say that Paddock was suffering from some sort of a mental deterioration, and that he would lie in bed screaming, "Oh my God," over and over again. So, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. That at least, there appears to be something, when it comes to these notions of mental issues with Stephen Paddock. Now, maybe that's Danley kind of covering her tracks. Who knows? But I just wanted to mention it. And to, again, keep in mind that this isn't, these are obviously someone that spends $100,000 playing video poker is different from me and you. And we shouldn't assume that behavior that to us may seem odd or suspicious is actually quite normal for people like them. So again, I know I fell into this trap myself with the whole, they neighbors claim they didn't have furniture, that they were never home, that, they kept to themselves, that Paddock would, he would cross the street so he wouldn't have to talk to people, that he was weird and quiet and kind of angry all the time. To us, these are, oh my God, this is super suspicious. And I kind of fell into that as well. Why are they traveling around so much? And, what are they hiding and whatnot? But again, if you are a serious gambling addict, that's pretty normal behavior. As Ed said, he knows tons of people all over Vegas that are exactly like this couple, where they never are at home. They live in the casinos, and they get all these wonderful amenities and stuff. So just, again, try to branch out, try to think outside of the box. You're not, your life is not Stephen Paddock's life. Now, A few interesting points that I wanted to mention here before because we're coming up close on the break, and in the second hour I want to sort of shift things around a little bit. But some interesting points. As I said before, October 2016 to September 28th, 2017, Paddock bought 33 guns. That's more than 2 a month. Now, he was definitely a gun person before this, I believe. And, and there's anecdotal evidence from various people that it is. But that's 33 guns in a very brief period of time. Something, I think, had to have happened. That had to be some sort of a trigger, So we need to look into that. What on earth happened in October 2016 that made this guy start really, stockpiling guns? It's one thing to buy guns, be a gun person. You can still, but 33 guns in a fairly brief period of time, plus all this tannerite and supposedly, ammonia nitrate, fertilizer. Something had to happen, okay, that we need to kind of keep our eye on. Again, Sheriff Lombardo believes that someone had to know something was going on, given the amount of guns and ammos and, the sort of stockpiling. We should maybe take that with a bit, a grain of salt. Yes, I think it's quite possible that somebody knew something about this, but at the same time, we don't know anything about this guy. Again, no presence on social media. He has almost no political belief. His only, beliefs or outlets or anything we really know is that he loved to play video poker. That seems to be what his entire life revolved around. Ed pointed out a good thing to me too. If, even if Stephen Paddock just snapped or needed help with this, it's a big thing to convince somebody we're going to kill scores and scores of people for no reason, to get someone in on that. Okay, fine, but what's the motive? What did Stephen Paddock do to convince somebody else to help him do this? That's a big thing to convince someone to help you commit murder, let alone mass murder. So again, keep that in mind. I know that we want to jump to the conclusion that there had to be somebody, but keep that in mind. Another thing is his father. Okay, Patrick Benjamin Paddock. This is a bit odd, and I don't know if it has any bearing on this case in particular, but very briefly, he's charged. Paddock's father is charged in 1960 with stealing $25,000 from 3 banks in Phoenix. The FBI arrests him in Vegas of that summer. He receives a 20-year prison sentence in 1960. 1968, he escapes from prison while in Texas, and this is what gets him on the FBI's most wanted list. For a decade, he is on the run, living in Oregon, running a bingo parlor and scamming people in the bingo parlor. He's caught in 1978, 10 years later. Okay, this is a guy that was sentenced to 20 years in prison for armed robbery. Then he escapes from prison, okay, and 10 years later is caught. He serves 1 year. 1 year in prison after that, and then is paroled. Okay? And then he immediately returns to Oregon, continues scamming people through bingo. He at one point claims to be a pastor and tries to, scam little old ladies and things like that. In 1987, the state attorney general up in Oregon charges him with racketeering in connection to a second bingo parlor and a bunch of other scams, but just lets him pay a huge fine, something like $100,000, maybe a little bit more. That's it, no jail time. Then he goes to Texas and spends the final years living in Texas with another woman, and they run a machine shop. And then we don't know, he's alleged, according to all these news outlets, to have died. That is very odd, okay? Like I said, I don't know if that has any bearing on this case, but first off, it's really hard to break out of prison. Almost impossible. And so when people do break out of prison, there's always more to that story. And again, prison officials, like casino officials, they don't want to get into those sort of details. Were prison guards helping? Was he allowed to escape? There's a whole bunch of things. So very interesting with the father. We're now at the break. We're going to be kind of unpacking a bunch more of this in the second hour, and we're going to get into the role that the media has been playing. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutamerica@usa.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
And when we're not invading some sovereign nation or setting it on fire from the air, which is more fun for our Nintendo pilots, then we're usually declaring war on something here at home. Did you ever notice that about us? We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we declare war on it. We don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving problems, declaring war. We have to declare war on everything. We have a war on crime, the war on poverty, the war on litter, the war on cancer, the war on drugs. But you ever notice we got no war on homelessness? Huh? No war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. No money to be made off of the homeless. If you could find a solution to homelessness where the corporate swine and the politicians could steal a couple of $1 million each, you see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty quick. I'll guarantee you that. I will guarantee you that.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, roger, copy. 3, 2, 1, engage.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are just joining us right now, we have been talking, I've been talking by myself about the Las Vegas shooter and Stephen Paddock, and we are, of course, going to continue that conversation. But quickly, if you want to support my work, and also if you want to hear an exclusive interview I did with Ed Opperman all about the Vegas shooter. And if you really want to get like a sense of what it was like being in Las Vegas at the time, and a sense of the mindset of people around there, the culture of the police department, all those things, then you can go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you will get access to that episode as well as access to the bonus podcast that I do every month. So definitely check that out if you have not already. But let's continue this conversation, because of course, I don't know, I definitely skipped over a bunch of stuff that I wanted to get into. So, don't jump down my throat because I didn't mention every little detail about Stephen Paddock or about the timeline or anything like that. Because I actually don't think most of those details really matter, because you're overlooking some of the big, not details, but you're overlooking the use of logic in this case, and we're going to get to that. But I did want to just briefly continue with one little thing, because I was talking there at the end about Stephen Paddock's father, Patrick Benjamin Paddock, who is was able. Like I said, was sentenced to 20 years, escaped from prison, was on the run for 10 years, then was caught, and then served a year in prison and then got paroled. And then when he got caught again scamming people, he just had to pay a fine. That's an interesting point to me. Like I said, that is bizarre in and of itself, that you could, I don't know of many other people that get sentenced to 20 years in prison, they escape, they get on the FBI's most wanted list, and then 10 years later when they're caught, they get paroled a year later, and then when they get caught yet again, because figure too, he's on parole, okay, and then he gets charged with racketeering charges, and he just has to pay a fine, he doesn't go back to jail. That is beyond odd. And I'm kind of shocked and amazed that more people haven't that hasn't clicked for them as something strange, because that doesn't happen very often. Now, that's not to say that this is some sort of an explanation for what happened, or that this is proof that Stephen Paddock was there was something more to this. But it's an odd point, and it's an interesting point, and it's one that I think we should just sort of keep in the back of our mind when we're looking at this case. And quickly, I'm sorry to the listeners out there if you were hearing the ice cubes bouncing around in my glass. During the break, I got a text from a good friend of the show, Brian Heiss, asking if I was what I was drinking because he heard a lot of ice cubes bouncing around, and he said he was hoping that I was getting drunk. I'm not, unfortunately. I'm not drinking this month. Doing a sober month to just sort of clear out the liver and everything like that. So I'm drinking bitters and seltzer. So if you hear any ice cubes bouncing around, that's what it is. So apologies out there. But let's get back into the Vegas shooting and just a few little things before we kind of get more into the analysis and address some of the conspiracy theories involved with this. There have been some new details that have emerged that, again, are important to look at. One is that Stephen Paddock apparently had rented multiple hotel rooms, leading up to this. He is believed to have rented a hotel in Chicago overlooking the Lollapalooza Festival. Then he also rented a room through Airbnb overlooking the Life is Beautiful Festival in Vegas. So, again, premeditation. Maybe these were dry runs. Maybe he was scoping them out. Maybe he was going. We don't know. I mean, maybe he had all of these guns with him when he went to these two festivals. NBC has reported that there was a mystery woman seen with Paddock in the days before the shooting, and then that story kind of disappeared, and I don't quite know what to make of that. The same thing, they're saying that he may have hired a prostitute, that he may have been trying to shoot fuel tanks. There's a lot of may-haves in this. So he may have been with a mystery woman, but she may have been a prostitute. I mean, there's nothing concrete about any of that. And that is an aspect to this story that I think really deserves scrutiny, and that is the way the media has covered this, and the way that we have been inundated with so many of these kind of stories. Again, I was mentioning, where was it? I'm trying to find it in my notes now. I mentioned earlier in the first hour, that there was a report by ABC that in the months leading up to the event, Paddock was, quote, descending into madness. And this is according to a person briefed on the new findings in the investigation. Now, that ABC report, where they're saying that this is based on a person briefed on new findings in the investigation, that's actually sourced to an NBC article. So an ABC is reporting on an NBC article that's reporting on a person that was briefed on new findings in the investigation that Paddock was, quote, descending into madness. No evidence. He was descending into madness because of this. He was descending into madness after this. He was descending into madness. Here's how that manifested. Nothing like that. Instead, NBC reports that a person briefed on new findings in the investigation said that he was descending into madness. And that ABC article that I was talking about, it'll be up in the show notes. You can check it out. Nice big headline, descending into madness. Oh my God. And everyone's sort of, oh shit, what's this about? Let's and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Maybe there's something on this. Click on the article, you read, it's just the first sentence of this, fairly long, article on ABC. In the first sentence is basically saying that, according to NBC, they're reporting that according to some person, not even a law enforcement source, not the local government, just a person briefed on the investigation that he was descending into madness. And then the rest of the article, 99% of the article, is just fluff. It's all the same regurgitated stuff about Paddock was a loner who liked to gamble, and he killed 58 people, and police still don't know, and it happened at the Mandalay. It's like all the same kind of, it's filler. It's like 90% filler, okay? And then one sentence, he descended into madness based on a person. That's the source, a person. Not even a person close to the investigation, a person briefed on the investigation. So that could really mean almost anybody. That could be, that could be some wet behind the ears FBI agent, straight out of the academy who gets sent there to, get coffee for the other agents who could have been in the room while they were discussing theories. He could have been in the room while they were doing nothing. He could have not even been in the room. You know what I mean? He could have been secondhand information that someone heard from some guy who, walked past an office where they said this. I mean, it could be anything. But like with this entire case, they all kind of run with it. It's like that's it. They all kind of go with this, and we've seen more and more these confused, contradictory reports about this. Like I said, Jesus Campos gets shot, is shot at with 200 rounds. One hits him in the leg after Paddock opens fire on the Country Music Festival. No, scratch that. It was actually before that. So, the same thing about there's all these contradictory reports with the police. It was 60 people. No, it was 59. No, it's actually 58. But it's technically 59 counting him. But then we counted someone wrong. Again, lots of contradictory reports that are coming out, and a lot of this I think is really kind of stems from the fact that the police totally lost it. They were totally, they panicked. They didn't know what they were doing. Again, Ed told me this is being reported locally in Nevada, that, the cops didn't evacuate anybody. They weren't helping people to get out of the, to the outside area that, until I think it was, at 6 o'clock in the morning, like the following day, they were still finding bodies because they hadn't properly cleaned up what is a crime scene. They hadn't properly cleaned that up. They hadn't found that it was roadies that were, helping people evacuate, moving injured people. That there were, people might have probably have seen it. There was I think he was on Anderson Cooper. He was a former Iraq veteran who happened to be there with his girlfriend. He helped evacuate people. He basically, borrowed a truck that was nearby, and he just said, he just started loading people in the back of a truck, drove them to a hospital, and then came back. The police were doing nothing. What were the police doing that night? They were, again, according to, Ed and other people, and Ed, he spoke to 30 witnesses there. Okay? Off the record, so they say whatever, they could speak candidly. They said the cops did nothing. If anything, the cops freaked out. They were behind their cars, guns drawn, screaming at people. And you can even, if you watch the very limited body cam footage that's come out, they don't know what they're doing. They're screaming. You listen to these, police dispatch, the radio, stuff that's come out. They don't know up from down. They're talking about, there's shooters over here. No, wait, it's over here. We don't know where it is. You can hear at one point on those radio dispatch, the dispatcher is saying, everybody calm down, okay? Stop freaking out. You're cops, act like it. They're saying, you guys are, you're confusing everybody right now. Then you hear the cops say, it's not a second shooter, it's a strobe light, everybody relax, so the cops seem to have completely dropped the ball on a lot of this, and I think that is contributing to so many of these confused, contradictory reports. I would love, if people watched, this Sunday, on 60 Minutes, they had this ragtag group of, police. It was like 2 cops, and 2 cops from the K-9 unit. These are the impromptu, and there was one SWAT guy who was never interviewed by CBS. They were the ones that, made their way up to the 32nd floor, and they're the ones that breached the room, and found Paddock dead. But, according to them, this was after Campos was shot, not before. This was, they weren't saying that Campos was shot before Paddock started shooting down there. So, I'd love to talk to those cops again. But anyway, we've got all these contradictory things coming from the police, and it does seem like, again, if there is something of a cover-up, I wonder if it isn't because of the complete lack of professionalism from the police that are supposed to be professional, especially in a situation like this. But more so, we're experiencing this event through the media, whether we like it or not. And the media, they are selling us a story of Paddock and this event. And they're selling it in the sense of, they want us coming back and they're selling us a particular narrative that they're getting. But in a more literal sense, they are, selling us newspapers. They're selling us clicks. They're selling us ratings. They're selling us advertisements. And they want us to keep coming back. And they want to make money off of this. So keep that in mind, too, when you see all of these spectacular headlines from the police. Like, again, he may have hired a prostitute. You read that article, there's nothing. There's not even – it's like the vaguest of the vague when it comes to sources with this. A person close to the investigation or, what is the evidence? Get this, for instance. They've now said that Paddock, he didn't check in on the 28th of September. No, he actually checked in on the 25th. They can't even get that right. Okay? Again, hotel records? What the Mandalay Bay? Huge, massive hotel and casino. They're not keeping records of when this motherfucker is coming in and out. Now it's the 25th, not the 20th. That should be, hour one material. That's like immediate investigate. When did this guy get here? Okay, cool. We start from there, moving forward. They can't even get that. But, and again, these journalists are going with the vaguest of the vague. The most sort of just puff piece, it's fluff, it's filler. There's like nothing to these stories. So much of that is because, they're getting it through the mouths of the police, who apparently they can't seem to keep their story straight. But more so, again, like I said, they are selling us a story, and they are selling us clicks. They're selling us advertisements. So they sex up everything. And, I think that this is probably obvious to people out there. I don't think this is, a controversial subject. But again, we need to sort of keep that in the back of our mind, because for as much, again, as the conspiracy media wants to poo-poo the mainstream media, almost everything that they're, theorizing is coming from the mainstream media. You know what I mean? There's no... Alex Jones doesn't have a reporter on the ground in Las Vegas interviewing people. No, but none of these other people are making YouTube videos and stuff about second shooters. They don't have someone on the ground talking to witnesses. No. What are they doing? They're reporting on vague reports that come from the mainstream media that are really not about telling you the truth. They're about selling you a story. They're about getting you interested. They've and especially with these big events like that, they've got us hooked right now. Suddenly, oh God, oh shit, it's, Wolf Blitzer is on, switch over. Oh God, Tucker Carlson has got so-and-so. People that don't care about the news media, suddenly now they're obsessed with it. They've got to watch it. Oh, I got to read the New York Times now because, their coverage has been better, or I might get that nugget of information that uncovers the big conspiracy. So, we need to keep that in mind when we're exploring or when we're trying to analyze what's going on here. Because and again, if you watch, I watched all the press conferences that for the most part that have come out, with Lombardo and, Russo or Roos, the FBI special agent in charge. They say, and you see that the media will ask the same question. You'll have a reporter ask the same question 8 different times, with slightly different wording, and they get the same answer. And then they run with the most, this is another thing too that we should keep in mind. The mainstream media, they're spinning conspiracy theories out there because they don't there's no easy explanation. The mainstream media loves an easy explanation. They love to get from point A to point B. Paddock was crazy. This is why it happened. And I hate to burst the bubbles of the conspiracy media, but the conspiracy media, they may even they like the easily, they want the total explanation even more. Okay? And conspiracies offer a full, easily digestible narrative that goes from point A to point B. Oh, well, Paddock was really an agent of George Soros and ISIS and Antifa, and this is a false flag, and that's it. That's the end of this. You know what I mean? And you see that all the time. You'll see the conspiracy media. Oh, it's a false flag. Look, because there's a second shooter on the 4th floor window. That's it. That's the end of this. That's the reason this happened. Okay, not mental health or not nothing. There's no other explanation. So both the conspiracy and the mainstream media, they want to present us with this wonderful total explanation that explains everything. And the fact that we're not getting that, because again, there's no motive. Why did Paddock do this? There's nothing. The suicide note that the conspiracy media jumped on, apparently that seems to be nothing. That was like calculations on bullet trajectory from up there. I mean, I know this is what the police are telling us, so we should be weary, but I don't, if it was a suicide, I think we would have known that by now. You know what I mean? And again, it doesn't even, who knows if maybe Paddock was, I don't know, but I don't want to get too into the speculation and stuff like that. But what I do want to, again, I'm just trying to reiterate here is that the media, it doesn't matter who it is, they're trying to sell you something. They're not trying to give you a real explanation. They're not trying to uncover the truth. What they're really trying to do is sell a story, and they're trying to sell a narrative. And the fact that we don't have a concrete narrative, we don't know why Paddock did this. He had no profile online, no political beliefs. He didn't slip up and tell, sometimes with these, mass shooters or even, with the false flag, events and stuff, they slip up, they tell somebody, they get drunk in a bar, they say they're wrong, there's somebody that remembers something, there's an odd statement made by them. Nothing. He doesn't have any of that. Sorry, just taking a sip of water there. There's nothing. So what they're doing is they're filling it in with the most BS sort of stories that are really nothing. It's like one sentence and then 99% filler. And that fuels all of this misinformation, this confused schizophrenic reporting, this confused contradictory thinking amongst people. And, and it really leads us nowhere. Then what does it do? Well, it breeds a whole bunch of alternative conspiracy theories that really don't stand up. And I'll just quickly list some because I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't get into it. But multiple shooters. Okay, where? All right. No one else in the hotel hears anything. Okay. So you're trying to tell me that I guess Stephen Paddock wasn't the only one. There's someone on the 4th floor firing with an automatic rifle, but nobody around him hears anything. Okay. How could they cover that up? I mean, again, anybody that looks at Mandalay Bay, it's a huge glass building. You can clearly see where Paddock's windows were blown out or knocked out or whatever. So on the 4th floor, I guess they had a giant, huge pane of glass. God only knows how heavy that is, just ready to go. Even though we never saw it blown out before that. And even, how do they cover that up? I mean, again, it just, and then the thing with the light, it's a strobe light. Okay. You can hear the cops saying it. You can see it in some of the other videos from earlier in the concert. The multiple shooters thing is nothing. There's multiple shooters or events in like other casinos, people in the Luxor, and some of these other things. It's nothing. Okay. The whole city went crazy on lockdown. Again, there's nutty cops. They don't know what's going on. They're hearing that they would, I've seen videos from this woman inside one of the hotels. All these people are sitting on the floor. So again, there was just a shooting in the hotel, in like another hotel. I think it was the Luxor. I may be wrong. A nearby hotel. There's supposed to be a shooting there, but they have everybody is sitting on the floor and a woman's walking around filming it on her iPhone. Come on. Really? Okay. Then what do we have Brianna Hendricks. This is the woman that spoke to, I think it was Sky News or the Daily Mail. And then that got picked up, and she was interviewed by local Vegas affiliates and stuff like that. But Brianna Hendricks is a woman who says that a Hispanic woman and her husband pushed themselves to the front of the crowd at the concert, and they were screaming that everybody was going to die today, or everyone's going to die, and they were removed by hotel security. So of course, this is this is total proof that I guess this Hispanic woman, again, she has to be Hispanic, she was involved in this or knew something prior knowledge. Has no one out there that buys into this? Have they never been to a concert where people are drunk or high? Have they never been drunk or high at a concert? I mean, this woman could have been, if you read through what Brianna Hendricks says, and I will say she appears to have kind of walked back some of these details. But the lady could have been hammered, okay? And she's getting pushed around. It was packed. She said, something like, I think she dropped her bag, or she couldn't, she felt like people were pushing her, and then she screamed, "You're all gonna die." That can mean you're all going to die because you're pushing people around. Someone's going to get trampled. She could have been saying you're all going to die because she's hammered or, high on something, and she just said it. Again, logically, not every offhanded comment. Again, too, this isn't, I don't know if they were at the at the Met, at the opera, okay, and someone said you're all going to die tonight, okay, maybe there you might think, okay, that's a bit odd, you know what I mean? No one is getting, wasted before they go to see the opera. And if somebody said something like that and something happened, okay, maybe that's a bit suspicious. But just as I'm getting all excited, and then we got this fire truck going out my window. But again, they're at a country music festival. Everybody's been drinking. You're out all day in the sun. People say stupid things. I don't. Where is this woman? Nobody's interviewed her. The cops. There's nothing to it. Come on. And if it was something, again, we've got this private security. They let that go. But again, think logically. You've never heard someone say something like that at a bar or a club or at a concert. Get real. Or maybe get outside your house. Then, this whole ISIS, Antifa, George Soros thing. Okay. First ISIS has claimed responsibility, and then the FBI denies it, and then ISIS doubled down and tripled down. And they 3 times ISIS has said, no, Stephen Paddock was our guy. They even had an Arabic name for him. Okay, number one, we're trusting ISIS now? So just to be clear, to all these people saying it's ISIS, we now trust ISIS. This is still the same group that is basically a CIA creation, that doesn't exist anymore, that is, they've been pushed out of most of their strongholds in Iraq and Syria. They claim credit for everything, okay, real or imagined. They've now had to, after the Russians supposedly killed Baghdadi, then, most recently ISIS had to come out with an audio recording, not a video, an audio recording purported to be Baghdadi saying I'm alive. So, this group that's on the ropes, okay, that needs a win real bad, they're claiming that Stephen Paddock was their agent, and we're all meant to believe this. Okay. Now, the ISIS Antifa thing, then that gets sort of jacked up even more because Alex Jones, live on his show, along with Paul Joseph Watson, Alex, you can see it, hold on. And then he whips out his cell phone and he starts reading, supposedly from his phone, saying that he's got an FBI or a CIA source or something who's, I guess, texting him, saying that oh, this was everything from a Fast and Furious ISIS gun running thing that went out of hand to this is, they broke in and they killed, the FBI killed Paddock. It wasn't the cops or it wasn't himself. The FBI killed him and they found Antifa literature all over the place and, ISIS material and there's pictures of him in the Middle East with ISIS members. And this is all from his source on his cell phone. And even Paul Joseph Watson is looking at like, wait a minute, what? And he even says like, well, if that's true, and Alex Jones said, no, what do you mean? It is true. I got the source right here on my phone. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting all dramatic about this. But again, that's it? We're trusting? I mean, Alex, get this guy on camera. Talk to somebody. There's nothing beyond this, okay? It's just like him saying that, again, an anonymous source told him that this happened. Not even that the anonymous source was there. It's like, oh, he's saying the anonymous source told him that the FBI told them that, when they went in, they found ISIS and Antifa. I mean, first off, do we again, we're believing that Stephen Paddock, okay, a white, middle-aged, retired guy who's a millionaire who does nothing but gamble, he's an anti-fascist? Really? This is a false flag by George Soros and Hillary Clinton to start the civil war between the alt-right and the, all of this, and then you get, all of these people that are going on and on about it's a false flag, it's a false flag. Of what? What's the false flag? Who is if it's a false flag, there has to be a political reason for this. You know what I mean? Like a false flag really, in a real textbook definition, there has to be a reason for the false flag to be committed. And that reason has to be fairly obvious to people. Okay? Or else it's not really, then there's no point. Okay? So if it's, an Islamic terrorist, okay, that's kills a bunch of people in the name of Allah, okay, but really you find out, well, he's all these connections to the CIA or MI6 and they trained him and, this and that and then that, particular attack leads to war and or something. You know what I mean? Like there has to be like the original, or one of the sort of early false flags, that, people talk about or look to, or they used to point to, but they don't really anymore, is, it was like up, I think it was the German Nazis up by like Finland or something like that, but it was like a cross-border thing where a bunch of German agents, crossed over and they attacked an army base in some Scandinavian country, and they blamed it on some other country, some other group, in order to justify invading them ahead of time. That's a textbook example. Country A wants to invade country B, so they hire a bunch of soldiers or patsies, and they make them look like they're rebels that want to attack country B. And they attack country B, but really they're working for country A. And this gives the country A the justification to go into country B and take, there's nothing. I'm sorry. This false flag thing, it's to what ends? What's the, if this is about taking our guns, where's Paddock's manifesto about this? You know what I mean? Like, what, if this is really about Antifa, like, where's his rant about this? How has nobody come forward? And then more so, it's like, who's he working for? Don't just tell me George Soros. Show me. Give me something. And this, I think, again, stems from the fact that we really don't know anything. Or we don't know anything in the sense that we can't pinpoint that, okay, this is who, Stephen Paddock was this type of person. Therefore, he committed this evil murder. Or Stephen Paddock had a mental break because of this. And this is why he bought all these guns. And, we don't know any of that. And to be honest, we may never. Okay? This sort of brings me to the crux of this whole thing, is that these conspiracy theories involving multiple shooters or ISIS, the sort of sensational reporting by the mainstream media, and you've even seen, I saw some mainstream, people saying, they'd preface these articles or opinion, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Stephen Paddock doesn't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. So this feeds into this, and this creates a lot of people jumping to crazy conclusions, trying to offer up explanations. They're trying to make sense of this. Even if making sense of it is, well, this is obviously Hillary Clinton and George Soros funding Antifa, in order to whatever. Again, I mean, where's the reaction? That's the other thing, and you get all these people on YouTube who shall remain nameless, but everyone's a false flag expert. But I mean, first off, where is the false flag that Paddock was waving? You know what I mean? Like the definition of false flag stems from naval warfare, where a Navy ship would fly a different flag, okay, not their country's flag. They would fly another country's flag or another organization's flag to attack another boat, okay, in order to evoke a response from the boat that was attacked. So again, you got a British boat and a Spanish boat, and the British boat flies a French flag, and they attack the Spanish boat, and then that, in turn, then the Spanish start attacking the French, and then the British capitalize on that. I mean, where's the flag? There's nothing. Okay, so this sort of brings me to my point. In terms of this is, I think this is either something that we may never fully understand, and not that that's okay, but I think it might be something we need to accept. But beyond that, instead of looking for, and this is everybody in the media, all spectrums of the media are guilty of this. Everybody wants someone to blame. Well, Paddock was a gun nut, therefore, they're crazy and they do this. Or Paddock was a Hillary supporter, and so he wanted to shoot down on the country music fans. Well, that doesn't really stand up when, well, what if he was going to shoot down at Lollapalooza, where Obama's children were? What does that mean? But let's, again, take a step back. Look at this more broadly. What do we for sure know about Stephen Paddock? He's a gambling man, okay? He appears to be a gambling addict. Now, I don't know if anyone out there who's exploring this, or maybe even who's listening right now, has been in a casino. I have very limited experience in casinos, but I've been in casinos, okay? Both regular, like big casinos, table games and things like that. I was in the Montreal casino, very, big la-di-da casino, and, all roulette and baccarat and all sorts of things, and I've been in, slots only, like racinos and stuff like that. And I freely admit I like to gamble, and I have gambled, in my life. I particularly on horses. I like, being at the track. It's fun to gamble on horses, and I've never like spent all my money, but you lose money, and I understand a little bit some of the mentality of gambling, and how gambling can affect your brain, especially when you're in the moment. And for a man that spent sometimes 14 hours a day in a casino staring at a computerized machine, and then when he went home staring at his computer screen at home playing online poker, that will do something to your brain, okay? And especially these this is a thing that I don't think people really fully understand, because they don't actually know the world. They don't know how gambling works. You don't make money on video poker, okay? Now, yes, you can, obviously, anybody can get lucky and make money gambling. That's part of the fun of gambling, is that it's, to a large degree, there's a lot of luck involved. Nobody is making millions of dollars off of gambling on Joker poker. It doesn't happen. Now, you can sort of game the system a little bit with a lot of the slot machines and particularly, things like video poker. A lot of these are progressive machines, which means that the jackpot is progressively increasing. And what they'll do is they'll pool a lot of machines together into one big jackpot. And there are patterns and things like that you can kind of begin to understand. And it seems like Paddock was smart enough to kind of get some of that. But the payouts with these things are not huge. You're going to make a lot more money playing poker with real people. Okay? You're going to make a lot more money playing anything else, basically, but on these video machines, you're not, again, this is why casinos love slot machines, because they almost always win. Okay? It's a sucker bet. All right? Especially the ones where you're just basically either pulling a lever or just hitting a button. You're never, ever going to win on that. Yes, of course, some people do, but that's luck. That's the luck of the draw. That's the 1 in a million chance that you're going to hit the button enough times and you're going to get whatever you want. The video poker machines are essentially the same thing. You might make a little bit of money here and there, okay? But you have to put in so much money to really start actually getting anything in return. Versus if you were to play poker with real people, you could, listen, there's a reason there are professional poker players. Okay? There's a reason there are professional gamblers, because you can make money, but a lot of that requires actually having to play with human beings. You're never going to make money in front of one of these screens. Okay? It doesn't work like that. And Paddock, again, he might have put, he's winning in the sense that he's getting comped, okay? So you can, in theory, gamble for free with video poker and things like that. In that, if you gamble enough, the hotel is going to pay for everything, okay? The casino will comp you dinner, very expensive dinner. The casino will comp you drinks. The casino will comp you a hotel stay. They will comp you all sorts of amenities. You'll get free shows. You can go see, Siegfried and Roy or Penn and Teller or whatever. You can, in theory, you can have a free vacation, but only if you're willing to front tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there. Okay? And that's how this works. And almost always with these video poker machines, this is why the casinos put in more and more of these machines. They're addictive, okay? They've understood all of this sort of triggers and stuff with the noise and the light and all of this. And again, there's this idea amongst a lot of people that they can somehow figure out. And believe me, I've done that. I've seen people do this with video roulette in casinos. Okay, so instead of an actual roulette wheel that a person spins, or they even have ones. I've played roulette on a wheel where it's all digital. There's no real person there, but there is an actual roulette wheel that's constantly spinning, and then there's a machine that drops the ball. But they have roulette machines where it's all video. Okay, it's all a computer that is, and there's of course there's a gorgeous woman who's, talking to you through the screen. But it's all computerized. And they will have up, all casinos do this now. They'll have up a big screen with all the numbers that are quote hot and all the numbers that are cold. So they'll have a list of, on the roulette, all the numbers that have come, the past, 2 hours, all the numbers that have come up. And then they'll have all the numbers that haven't come up. Okay. And I've seen guys, and I like to play roulette again. But I've seen guys sitting there, okay, with the computerized roulette things, and they'll say, "Oh, look, everybody bet this is going to happen. I figured out the pattern." There's this idea that because it's a computer, you can somehow figure out the patterns and the algorithms and stuff. And on some level, you can kind of do that with a video poker, but it doesn't work to where you're making millions and millions of dollars. All you're really doing is you're hoping that by spending this money, the casino is going to give you some freebies. And that's how it works. Okay? And for a lot of people, they're content with that. Believe me, you go into any casino, the most depressing parts are the slot machines. Okay? Because it's just people that are there. They don't even care. They don't care if they win or they lose. What they really want is to be one with the machine. Okay? They want to feel close to the machine. I know that sounds like kind of weird and creepy, but that is the reality. That, again, this is people that don't understand gambling and the addiction that people can have to gambling. So again, if Paddock is spending almost all of his waking time with a machine, staring into the screen, looking into it, putting in endless amounts of money, clicking and clicking and clicking, not doing anything else. I mean, these people, they don't go to the bathroom because they don't want to lose the machine. That's the other thing too. You'll be in the casino. This machine is good. Don't play that machine is bad. There's no difference. Okay. Trust me. It's not like a table game where there's something here. Even if roulette. I mean, at least there's people, what I mean, or craps or something like that. There's something there. I mean, especially craps. I mean, it's just dice. But with the machine, there's no difference between them. There's nothing. It's all, it's designed to suck you in. These guys, they don't go to the bathroom. They just stare at the screen 14 hours. Now, when you're that committed and you're that sort of detached from the reality around you, and especially from human interaction, one of the things I read about Paddock, the reason he got his pilot's license and he liked to fly is because he reportedly said, because there's no people up there. When I'm flying, there's no one around me. It's just me and this machine. Okay, again, that's the mentality of of a lot of gambling addicts that are addicted with the slot machines. It's just them and the machine. There is no one else around them. The machine and the life that they live with this machine, the world that they inhabit, that is real. That is more real than the real people around you. And I think in large part, that's probably why Stephen Paddock didn't play poker with he would actually have to deal with real people. And they may not have felt real to him, okay, the way that it can feel with these machines. And listen, this is obviously speculation. We don't know. So, you can leave it or take it. You can, send me a nasty email. I don't know what I'm talking about or whatnot. But, we've progressed as a society that is so obsessed with our screens and all this stuff. I mean, think about how many people right now might, you might be listening to me talk, okay, on the show, live or recorded, and you're at the same time you're checking your phone. You're checking Twitter. You're on Instagram. You're emailing someone. You can't stop staring at the screen. Your phone. You get into an elevator, everybody's on their phone. You ride a train in New York, everyone's on their phone. I mean, so the idea that we sleep with our phones, like you put your phone next to your bed. God forbid your phone is in the other room. Oh my God, what could happen in the middle of the night? Like something is going to happen. So we're so obsessed with our phones and these things like that. Again, this just transhumanist mindset that we've become so obsessed or so reliant, and we develop these almost like these complex relationships with our technology. Now, what if Paddock had developed this with these video poker machines, then perhaps from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, looking down on, little specks, okay? That wasn't real. Killing those people, shooting down at those people, that may not have been real to him. In the same way that when he's sitting in front of a video poker machine, that is real. Okay? That is when he feels alive. That is when he feels something, is when he's sitting in front of those machines for 14 hours a day. But when he's up there shooting down, those people weren't real. That makes it very easy to commit mass murder when what you're doing, what you're killing, what you're shooting at, that's not real. Okay? And this is just sort of across the board. Okay? I mean, this is, why do you think they give drugs to child soldiers? Because it makes what's happening not real to them anymore. Okay? Why do you think the Charles Manson continually fed LSD to all of the people around him? Because it made everything else not real. Okay? When you can dissociate yourself from reality, it makes doing horrible things that much easier. Now, perhaps this is an angle that needs to be explored a little bit more with Stephen Paddock. Perhaps there is more to this, his issues with gambling. Perhaps there's more to the issues with the casino. Are casinos going to say, hey, you know what, buddy? That's enough. Okay, like even in a bar, okay? And, you know, and I'm not knocking bars. I obviously love drinking. But in a bar, you know, if you're plastered, the bartender is going to cut you off. All right? Like, all right, be easy. You know, like you're done. Okay? Like you're done. You have to go home, or let's call you a cab. They don't do that in a casino. When you're at that level where you've kind of broken through, what happens? A host or a hostess comes from the casino and says, would you like to upgrade your hotel room? Would you like some free tickets? Oh, here's some drinks. Would you like some drinks? Here's some other amenities. Would you like some Coke? Okay, cool. Do you need a hooker? That's what they're there for. They're not there to cut you off. So, and this is another part of this story that's not being explained. No, there has to be a political motivation. Was Paddock a Republican or a Democrat? Was he pro-gun or anti-gun? Was he Antifa or ISIS? Was he always crazy? Or did he have a mental breakdown, recently? All those things are not, those are more important. But what I find to be the most obvious is that, listen, this guy spent all of his time in casinos gambling. Did that play a larger role in this? Do the casinos know a little bit more about Stephen Paddock? Or just do the casino, no casino wants the guy completely lost it because he did nothing but sit in front of a machine for 14, 15 hours a day, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. They don't want to admit that, okay? And no casino wants to admit that maybe they saw some warning signs and screwed up. The same way that the Vegas police don't want to admit that they completely freaked out and that they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off while this guy was mowing down people, okay? And they don't want to admit that. So all the likely culprits here are there, and we're not focusing on them, again, because it doesn't sell, or it doesn't sell in the way that the media wants it to sell. And it doesn't have a nice cookie cutter sort of a point A to point B explanation. And again, too, I mean, let's not leave out the fact that we're a violent society. That Switzerland, everybody in Switzerland owns a gun. All right, everybody in Norway owns a gun. In part because there's a national conscription, and that's the case in Switzerland. So everybody joins the army, and then everybody has an assault rifle that they keep in their home because at a moment's, if Switzerland is invaded, everyone is conscripted again. There's no mass shooters in Switzerland. Okay? So the idea that, it's just the guns. No. We're a violent people. We do nothing but, nowadays, what's our big thing? We murder people in front of screens, drones. Okay? They sit all day flying drones around Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen, all these places. They push a button and suddenly the funeral procession, they don't exist anymore. They've been vaporized off the face of the earth. So I'm not trying to say that's like sitting in front of a video poker machine, but you see where I'm coming with this. I mean, we're a violent people that breeds off of this. Our whole country is predicated on this. So when you then mix in, other pressures in the world, or when you mix in all these other things, you can have really disastrous results. Well, anyway, thank you all so much for joining me. Again, if you enjoyed this, then please go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond and you can sign up to become a subscriber. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Michael Swanson about this and more. And so until then, I will be talking to you very soon.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutAmerica@USA.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
And when we're not invading some sovereign nation or setting it on fire from the air, which is more fun for our Nintendo pilots, then we're usually declaring war on something here at home. Did you ever notice that about us? We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we declare war on it. We don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving problems, declaring war. We have to declare war on everything. We have a war on crime, the war on poverty, the war on litter, the war on cancer, the war on drugs. But you ever notice we got no war on homelessness? Huh? No war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. No money to be made off of the homeless. If you could find a solution to homelessness where the corporate swine and the politicians could steal $2 million each, you see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty quick. I'll guarantee you that. I will guarantee you that.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow, friendships to flourish, with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom, and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, roger copy. 3, 2, 1, engage.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio.